Magic lies in the mind, but my blade follows my heart. By far, this was the most requested video from your suggestions, guys, and so here we are. Welcome back to the channel. Now, underrated heroes hold a very special place in our hearts because it feels like we are holding on to a gem, and we don't want anyone to touch it because we're afraid Moonton will nerf them. So that we're all on the same page, I consider underrated heroes to fall into 3 categories: underrated submeta, underrated niche, and underrated counterpick. The heroes that fall into the underrated sub-meta group are all of those heroes that you can literally sub into meta comps without any problems. A lot of these exist in the side lanes mostly. The underrated niche category are heroes that are comparable, if not better than meta heroes. But you need to build a team comp that covers their weaknesses and enhances their strengths. A lot of these heroes fall into the jungler and mid laner roles. The last category, underrated counterpick heroes, are heroes that basically only work when the enemy brings certain types of heroes. Most of these heroes fall into the roamer and side lane picks, but there's a lot more space for variation here in general. I would like to keep this video only about the first class, the underrated sub-meta heroes, so that you can unlock their power and take them into your games, and then realize how extremely underrated they are. If you guys want to see underrated niche or counterpick heroes, make sure you stay tuned, as I'm basically making these based on feedback, and some of these end up being in our 5-man comps like the recent video I posted. Remember, at any time you can check the chapters if you would like to skip to a certain hero, and why they are worthy of the underrated sub-meta tag. Akai, the panda with one of the best ultimates in the game. Akai is one of the few tanks in the game that can both aggressively peel and aggressively gank enemies. The only reason Akai is underrated is because tanks in general are not often picked anymore as the main roamer. The supports or heroes turned into supports dominate the roamer class at the moment, but you can always take Akai to ranked and be confident you have a strong pick. His counters are mostly made out of knockups and Diggy, so don't pick him if the enemy has heroes like Veil who can interrupt your ultimate. Finally, after weeks and weeks of buffs and nerfs, Moonton finally found a decent balance for Argus. At the moment, his jungling capacity is slightly better than his laning capacity, slightly. The immunity to slowdowns is very important for heroes in the fighter class, so Argus having it for 4 whole seconds during his ultimate, which now has a lower cooldown, is a change that is well received. If you often find yourself not being able to rely on your tank in solo queue, and it seems that the enemies always focus you, why don't you give this hero a try? It may be worth it. Another underrated tank is Belerick, and as a Wan Wan main, I hate his guts. He can buy blade armor, and with his passive on top of that, basically invalidate any DHS user's existence. He can be played as a counterpick, but his taunt and root ultimately make him fit in as a good sub tank for most games. Just be careful and don't overestimate your engages, because Belerick can't just hop away like Akai can. Next up, we have Mr. Soccer Guy himself, Bruno. Bruno does insane amounts of damage, has a crazy range, and a good kit to defend himself with. As a hyper carry, he still has his potential there, but for Bruno to succeed as a pick, you need to make sure he's going jungle, and that you have a decent peel on your team, like Tigreal or related. Your build will determine how aggressive you can be with this guy, so pick your items wisely. Sometimes you need Wind of Nature, sometimes Athena Shield, it depends on the enemies. Do you guys remember the days of this man? First pick always in rank, if not banned, because his damage was insane early game and he was literally the definition of a snowball mage? Yeah, good times. Cecilion still hasn't lost his touch though. It's just a little harder to spam his skills. Before, all you had to do was spam S1 and get a good S2 in, and then bam, easy game. But with the current Cecilion, you have to be a bit more precise with your skills, and just like Aldous, if you're not getting stacks as often as you can, you're going to end up being useless to your team. Personally, I think he is on par with Eve at the moment, just not as much CC, more burst. The most underrated marksman for the past 2 seasons is easily Clint. Listen guys, when Moonton gives a hero an M1 or M2 skin, it's because that hero is broken. Look at Aldous. They changed him to do more damage in the early game now, Yeah, at the cost of his defense, but you can always build tank items anyways, right? So why are you doubting? Clint is easily on par within his own role, just don't use old builds that rely on Thunderbelt and all that other stuff. The new Clint is meant to deal massive damage without suffering the consequences of a small range. Next up on the list is Faramis. Now, I'll be honest with you, there's so many good things about this guy that I'm sort of sad he's getting reworked. Seriously, this guy in his current state is the definition of underrated. You can build full magic burst on this man and still have more armor than your fighters. His S1 has 100 hybrid defense. Pair it up with tenacity and go full burst, and then bam, you have a walking, tanky nuke that can revive your allies. This hero has a crazy passive that lets him respawn faster. Obviously you know about his ultimate, and I think the only complaint that I have personally for him is that his pull is not as good as I would want it to be, and that you can't really auto attack during his shadow form. That's about it. Even right now, this man is a rival to Kaja in terms of how useful he is. You know how everyone had forgotten Kaja until recently and then now all of a sudden he's broken? I believe Faramis is on par. Guinevere is one of my favorite heroes in the game. I love her design, her skills, her story, her art, her skins. She wasn't easy to learn to play for me, especially since the enemies can counter her easily and often, but eventually you can work around those obstacles, and let me tell you, a fed Guin is very dangerous. If you're going to play this hero, just be prepared to suffer immensely until you master her kit. Execute will be a lifesaver for you. When I say everyone has forgotten about this man, then literally everyone has forgotten about him. You know what makes Helcurt come in and out of the meta? His silence. If he has silence on his skill 1 without his ultimate, he's meta. If he only has silence during his ultimate, he's not meta. Helcurt has a global ult, so getting assist gold is easy, killing mages is easy, etc, etc. It's just, well, ultimate dependent. If you have a good low Yi partner or something else that can punish enemies heavily for grouping up, I would definitely recommend Helcurt. His ultimate kind of forces enemies to group up, so you should try and abuse his ultimate a bit better. You know how Luo Yi can have one super well placed ultimate and then turn the game around? Helcurt is in the same tier in regards to his ultimate. The next hero is one I have some personal beef with. I really hope that Moonton would have given her S1 maybe faster speed TBH, because that, along with that dumb delay on her ultimate, are the only thing keeping her underrated. If you're going to take Kadita, just make sure you don't pick her into heroes like Lancelot or other dash mobility based heroes, because catching them will be a big issue with Kadita and it'll make you have a lot of pain and depression. She's most often seen nowadays with Johnson as a replacement for Odette after Odette's butchering rework. Leomord, yeah, Leomord. I think Leo was only meta for a little bit, a long time ago, when he was taken as a jungler to counter carry jungler, but otherwise this man likes to stay sub-meta quite often. You can make some really strong plays with him, and he has some good range on his skills, both on and off his ultimate. And he's a great hero overall to master and then fit into most meta comps if you really want to. If you're honestly trying to main this guy, make sure you have an Angela main friend. You guys can probably rack up a lot of wins with that combination alone. Next up we have Backdoor Incarnate. Surpassing Zilong at his own mastery craft, Masha is a hero you can also win a substantial amount of games with, all the way up to and including Mythical Glory, provided you play solo queue. Playing Masha into 3-man or 5-man comps post Mythic 3 can be problematic, as the enemies are more prone to not letting you just freely farm their towers, you know? But if you have a team that has a heavy teamfight investment, meaning that the 4 heroes on your team can fight the 5 enemies in a clash and be equally matched or surpass the enemies, then Masha becomes the golden key to victory. The enemy will have to give resources to the team fights, or Masha will backdoor. If they give resources to Masha only, then they lose the team fight. She especially excels at taking objectives like lords or turtles. Seriously, you can be mid team fight and then just hear, an ally has slain the turtle, literally out of nowhere. Masha deserves more recognition, honestly. Following her on the underrated list is a hero that I believe Moonton will keep adjusting until they can find a proper balance for him. I'm talking about none other than the Twilight Dragon himself, Moskov. Moskov is basically one of the few marksmen with a very strong CC in their kits. I think the only other marksmen that have similar CC to Moskov are Bruno, Brody, and Popol, but unlike all of them, Moskov CC displaces the enemy and will then stun them if they hit a wall. Moskov is one of the few cores you can actually take against a Fene jungler team and make their life hell. If you can master his quick reaction speed to stuns and sniping with his ultimate, I'm sure he will become a great tool for you in your arsenal. If you get super proficient at him, and if you maintain good map awareness, it's very hard to lose a lane in a one-on-one with this man. If you're a roamer or a tank main, I know you hate Nana. Unless you're a Grok user, Nana can be very annoying for people trying to set up ganks. Molina has a crazy morph that can just about shut down any diver right in their tracks. She has very strong slowdowns in her skills as well, and because she reduces magic resistance, she can do a lot of burst damage with her ultimate, as well as provide support to other magic damage dealers on your team. Not to mention the bonus vision she gets with her Molina and her passive that's basically free immortality at level 1. This next one is what I like to call a value pack. Popol and Kupa whatever. This duo has been buffed into a state I would say is very near perfect, especially if you are new to marksman heroes. Popol and Kupa can do 3 roles: roamer, jungler, and side laner very efficiently. In solo queue, sometimes the only person you can rely on is yourself. His kit allows you to do this. Placing traps in strategic locations allows you the gift of vision and brushes so that no one can sneak up on you. The stun in his skill 1 in ultimate form does insane damage even if you are underfarmed and have very few items. The knock-up saves you from ambush type ganks, and of course if you want to tower dive, you don't have to do it, Kupa will do it for you. On top of all that, this man literally deletes towers easily. You can push all the way to an inhibitor within 8 minutes with this guy. That's how strong Kupa is. I think that his teeth are made of some weird metal or something, because I've seen this dog munch through some very tough objects. The only thing that really counters this guy are heroes that can literally just get away from Kupa's range really fast, especially Hayabusa. Another extreme value pack hero is Silvanna. I love this hero's value so much as well because just like Popol and Kupa, she can go roam, side, or jungle. Thanks to her passive, she can do nuclear amounts of damage with just Genius alone. She isn't as easy to use as Popol and Kupa by far, since you need to make sure you try to come into fights midway. Never initiate with her, otherwise people will easily cancel your skill 2, and you don't want that to happen. The only time where it is valid to initiate with her is if it's a 1v1 where the enemy has no Purify, or you made them burn their Purify, or if you are playing roamer with her. Otherwise, try not to do that and keep your survival rates up. Let me present to you the tankiest hero in the game, Terizla. His passive is literally damage reduction. You can equip Vengeance on him on top of that, and then you can equip Queen's Wings on top of that, but I suggest you don't. Terizla can be played in 2 ways. Lane bully Terizla, and then meat shield Terizla. In certain games, you can distract enemies for a long time just due to how tanky you are. Literally, you can force enemies to focus you while your team does objectives. It's like an inverse Masha. You can kind of like distract the enemy team, make them focus on you, but in reality, even if they kill you, they're the ones losing. If you die, think of it like a tank is dying. It's really the enemy team's loss because they lost whatever they did while trying to kill something that's just tanky. I think the most underrated feature about Terizla is the fact that people forget just how strong his skill 1 is. That thing is a portable execute and you should learn to fear it. Lava Lord brings back so many memories for me. Sadly, they nerfed him a bit too much for my liking, and I stopped playing him consequently. If you're an old timer here, you know this guy very well. Thamuz has always been that hero that has extremely high early game damage performance. His low cooldown skill 1, his regen and damage up always made me think of this guy as like the fighter version of Valir, but just a little bit more mobile. If you want to take Thamuz, just be aware that he also fits into most comps, but be careful, you might need to run Purify or Vengeance depending on the enemy. He is really fun to play though. Now that we talked a little bit about Lava Lord, let's talk about Valir, the Lord of Flames. Valir is very quickly becoming the next hero I'm maining after Wan Wan. He just provides so much for the team. I think his only weakness is his wave clear that's kinda bad, but trust me, very few enemy roamers have the guts to invade my jungler when I take Valir on the battlefield. Why? Because Valir does % max HP damage, and it is a lot of damage, especially early game. Seriously an underrated mage or support or roamer. He has Purify built into his ultimate just like Argus and Zilong, and he can take Purify as a battle spell as well. He also has a lot of CC and damage that is not item dependent, in case the enemy is snowballing your team very hard or in case you play roamer with him. I highly recommend this hero to players that want to make living hell for enemy fighters. Last but definitely not least, my one and only Wan Wan. I made a whole 30-minute guide on this cat, and it is designed for people that have her basics down but want to know a little bit more about the intricacies of Wan Wan's kit and really just want to excel with her. She still needs a couple of buffs for her to be viable for 5-man solo team, but in solo queue, once you master her, I'm sure you will benefit heavily from her kit and the new small buff she got. Her outplay potential is insane, and who wouldn't love her, right? She's a cat. Alright guys, that was a list and brief intro to all of the heroes that I think are sub-meta underrated. If you think I should have included a hero, let me know in the comments who you think I should have placed here and why. I'm interested to see what you have to say. Share the video if you want to show your friends which underrated heroes are viable right now. As always, thanks for watching. You guys are awesome. Zero out.